Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood. The demons squeal in sheer delight. It's you they spy, so plump, so right. Yet still you stand with frozen feet. You try to run, you try to scream, but no more sun you'll ever see. For evil reaches from the crypt to crush you in its icy grip.
G'day, Tragic here, and welcome to my final thoughts for A Touch of Evil. Vincent Price, you're the man. That's all I have to say about that. Anyway, so A Touch of Evil. Now, there is no argument that Touch of Evil is a simpler version of some of the other event-driven games. It's actually not really that complicated. This is boiling down the concept of the event-driven game to its absolute roots, which is dice chucking. This game is dice chucking, dice chucking, dice chucking, dice chucking. I mean, they've obviously been, in my opinion, they obviously seem to be heavily influenced by Arkham Horror, but it lacks the complexity that some would say make Arkham Horror fantastically better, but others would say it makes Arkham Horror a little harder to run. This is a game that I can get to the table more often than Arkham Horror. It's actually shorter, even though that game didn't seem so. And it's easier to run. People can just breeze through it. They can learn the rules very quickly. And then it's all about, having a beer with your mates and throwing some dice and having fun. Now, the showdown, which you saw, is actually quite long in the cooperative mode, especially with my custom rule of having the larger health pools. That is a lot more fun when you play co-op. All that dice rolling and oh no! Like if I was rolling, those terrible rolls I was rolling during the showdown, and there was like another 3 other people or 4 other people at the table with me, much more fun. Much, much more fun. So while this game is able to be played solo, because so much of it is based upon communal luck, like my luck of the dice affects everyone else. So even in Arkham Horror, that is not so much the case. I mean, you're all working together, but you're really individuals. This game takes the team aspect to a whole nother level. So yes, it is a little bit simpler than Arkham Horror, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, they are different games. They serve different purposes. And I find the theming in this game is some of the best I've ever seen in these heavy combat orientated dice rolling games that come out of America. I mean, the theming is strong. I mean, one person, a mate of mine, no way I can pronounce his name. It's like some Tolkien dragon. He's a Russian guy. He asked me about, well, what's the point of having the other boards? You never get onto them. Well, the fact is, I was playing a Shadowbrook villain, and there's actually, like, that cooperative track we're using, there's actually 2 different versions of that track. One of them focuses on the ghost pirates, and then depending on what villain you get, you have to go to different areas and you have to try and attain different types of skills. Like there's some villains that can only be attacked with spirit, like combat values mean nothing. And so the villain you choose and the cooperative chart you choose drastically alters how the game plays and where you need to go into the map. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't get about Touch of Evil, and that is that the theme is there for you to walk into, but it's like an open door. There is theme that requires you to do things and go places, but you can just hang. Just same as in Arkham Horror. Like in the Dunwich campaign, I went onto the Dunwich board twice in the whole game. You have to seek out the theming, but in A Touch of Evil, the theming is directly constructed into the villain choice. The villain changes every single minion. You saw me pack up all those chits. We only use like a few of them because each individual villain has its own individual chits. Each individual aspect of the game has its own chits. So I've played this game many, many times, and there's still chits that I've never used. I mean, I haven't gone through all the villains, and I've got a number of print and play villains. Talking about those chips, I was putting this together, I was thinking this box is really messy, you know, and I'm undecided whether I would probably buy a new expansion. I probably would, but at the same time, maybe it's time to put together. It might be a fun video of me doing how to make a box insert, you know, like a phone call box insert, and turn that great big mess into a nice bunch of tray systems. Tell me if you'd like to see that. But anyway, so Touch of Evil. I think this is a fantastic game. I think it excels at co-op. The versus game doesn't really appeal to me too much because the villain is so hard. I mean, if you have people backstabbing each other and getting in each other's way, the majority of versus games will end up with either one guy dying, with either everyone dying, sorry, and the villain winning, the shadow track going across, or it'll end up with one person fighting the villain and basically almost killing him, and then the other person just coming in and, you know, he's only got like 4 or 5 hit points left and killing him. So I really don't. The team game is better, but you need a large table to do that. I'm talking like 6 people minimum to play team games effectively. So co-op is really where I think it is. And it is a strong solo game, but some of the real pleasure of the dice rolling, you know, works best in co-op. Okay, one last thing before I go. A guy on my YouTube channel made a comment which is actually quite an interesting comment. He said, "How often do you need to use your brain in this game? Is this only roll and hope?" And the answer actually is, it's mainly roll and hope. That's what this game is. That is what all these types of game is. I'm talking Arkham Horror, I'm talking, you know, Eldritch Horror, I'm talking Smirch, I'm talking Arabian Nights, you know, and blah, 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 blah. The decision-making processes, the tactical and strategic thinking in the game isn't the point. Not like it is in, say, wargaming or miniature gaming or Euros or whatever like that, where the actual focus of the game is in the deep mechanics and the deep, heavy-duty decision-making. This game, in some ways, can be described as an activity. You're trying to just stay alive long enough to collect enough items to win the game. It's like a pastime. At its very basic core, you're just rolling dice until you have enough cards to roll more dice to kill the bad guy. And that's at its very, very core. And it makes it sound very dry and not fun. But it is actually extremely fun because unlike many other games, event-driven games allow for incredibly detailed narrative structure inside the game itself, beyond the mechanics and beyond the decision-making. Actual stories are created that you can retell, that you experience together in the same way that you experience like a television show or a movie, and in some way you yourself have experienced it. By playing these characters and going through these things, much like an RPG, you actually end up with a story. Like nobody really says, "Oh, do you remember that time playing Arkham Horror that I rolled 2 5s and I hit the monster for a point of damage and then he hit me for a point of damage?" I mean, you know, no one really says that. They say things like, "Oh, do you remember the time I went down to the curiosity shop to buy an item, but then this gigantic shoggoth jumped out of the wall and hit me for," you know, there's a story going on here. And it's communal. It's between you and the other people. And I think there's a very different way players interact in these kind of games. In heavy decision-making games, you're focusing on the game. Usually they're competitive as well, and you're focusing on beating the other person. And in a way, you're in a bubble. You're separated from the other players. I mean, you're hanging out together, you're having fun together, and you end up with a communal experience, obviously. But in many ways, you are completely separate, involved inside yourself and your game mechanics that you're trying to utilize. But these games are not about this. These strip away a lot of those decision makings and leaves you, the players, to just be in a location where things are occurring. Events are popping up and happening that you can talk about. And that is where these games excel, is in the shared communal experience. Now, I would say Arkham Horror is probably the heaviest of these types of games. But at the same time, even Arkham Horror, at its very, very core, is just a roll and hope game. Does that mean it's a bad game? No, I don't think so. I think they're very, very good games. I have a lot of fun with them, especially when you play co-op. Solo gamers, they miss out on one of the core concepts of these games, which is that your luck directly affects other people's luck, and you play off each other. You have shared hopes, like communal dreams, like you're hoping things together. I roll my dice and the other person on the other table like oohs and ahs over it, and that's something that solo gamers miss out on, and something that doesn't really occur except in co-op games. Now, even games like Galaxy Defenders has a lot of this value to it. It's all about the dice rolling. It's all about when you roll dice, your dice affects the mood of the players that you're experiencing, that you're tied up with. Your fates are tied together. I don't know. So, in short, no, I don't think it's there is actually a lot of deep decision making here. There just isn't, But I think that is completely in tune with how these games are designed and the type of game it is. It's like saying, what's with this football game? You can't pick up the ball. Why? Is there any point in the game where you can touch the ball with your hands? Well, of course not. It's football. But anyway, so that's Touch of Evil and my thoughts on it. I think it's a fantastic game, very well worth buying. If I was to suggest what to buy, I would say get a Touch of Evil, get the Coast expansion, and maybe one or two of the hero packs. And that's a great way to get into the game and without too much cost. And the Coast expansion is absolutely fantastic. We didn't see a lot of it. Next time I play, I'll definitely play using the Coast expansion more, because that's a really fantastic expansion. The forest expansion, like with the monastery, that's really great. But again, because we weren't playing the right monsters, we didn't see any of the portals. We didn't see the Crimson Hand cult. We didn't see all the stuff that board had to offer. And that's because of the way the theming works in this game. There isn't dilution in the same way that Arkham Horror has or Eldritch Horror has fixed, but there is sort of targeted. You have to choose really what you want the focus to be, because think of it like the theming of a movie, There could be, you've got all these different horror monster movies, but if you pick the Frankenstein monster, it's not going to have the same stuff in it as if you pick the werewolf monster, is it? And that's the way Touch of Evil is as well. Anyway, I'll catch you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. One thing though, I forgot to use there's actually, what I wanted to do to add extra difficulty at the end was there's actually a second chart that I forgot to use completely, which only comes in during the showdown. It's called the showdown optional chart, and that makes it a lot harder, and it extends the length of the game quite significantly, because it turns, it's like a horror movie then, like you have 3 or 4 encounters with a villain. You're fighting all those minions and you have an encounter and you've got to run away and lick your wounds. It's very cool, but I just completely forgot about that. Sorry. Next time I definitely will use that chart. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who commented and kept me company during this playthrough. You guys are legends, and I'll see you guys next time. Drop a line or drop into Tube Tables and say hi. The link is in the description as always. And, well, bye. 13. Oh yeah, you know what I mean.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood. The demons squeal in sheer delight. It's you they spy, so plump, so right. Yet still you stand with frozen feet. You try to run, you try to scream, but no more sun you'll ever see. For evil reaches from the crypt to crush you in its icy grip.